Welcome to Nature Calls, everyone. And it's really great to see you here today. I'm Jeff Ware, the Director of Philanthropy for the Alabama chapter of the Nature Conservancy. First thing I want to let you know is that we are recording this Zoom. Second thing is we're going to mute your microphone and ask if you want to comment that you type your comment or question into the chat box at the bottom of your screen. This makes it a lot easier for our presenter to manage the questions and answers at the end of the presentation. This program is called Nature Calls. It's our attempt to get you out of the house virtually and into our conservation work around the state. The program's approximately 15 minutes long with another 15 minutes for questions and answers. We will feature a new conservation program every week on Thursdays at 3 p.m. And now I'm pleased to introduce Elena Reynolds, Watershed Coordinator, to take us on a tour of the Locust Fork of the Black Warrior River and Big Canoe Creek. Elena?
Hello, my name is Elena Reynolds, and I am the Watershed Coordinator for Locust Fork and Big Canoe Creek watersheds. Today, I'm going to be talking about TNC's conservation efforts in both of these places. Alabama is known as America's Amazon. This infographic is from Alabama Water Watch. Many of you have probably already seen it, but it just shows that Alabama is #1 in freshwater fish biodiversity. So it's a really special place. Since it's such a special place, federal, state, and private stakeholders decided that they would form a group which is called the Alabama Rivers and Streams Network. And they decided that the most special watersheds in the entire state that have the most biodiversity would be termed strategic habitat units, or SHUs. So these are based upon biodiversity, and they're really focusing on watersheds where we can still preserve what we have and try to protect the unique species that live in these places. So the Nature Conservancy is a part of the Alabama Rivers and Streams Network, and based upon input from this group, we selected several strategic habitat units, or SHUs, to focus our conservation efforts in. So as of now, the TNC priority watersheds are Paint Rock River, Locust Fork of the Black Warrior River, Big Canoe Creek, and the Cahaba. Paint Rock River has seen a lot of really great conservation initiatives over the years from the Nature Conservancy. It is the pilot project that the rest of these watersheds are being mirrored after. So everything that was successful there in terms of best management practices, in terms of restoration projects and easements, we're trying to replicate that example in these other watersheds to have the same successes. This is just a map that shows the Locust Fork and Big Canoe Creek both. This actually came from the Alabama Rivers and Streams Network SHU Mapper. Locust Fork is about 900 square miles. It's relatively large, and it includes Blount County, it includes a little bit of Etowah County, it dips down into Jefferson County, and you can see that it's got cities such as Blountsville, Oneonta, and even some of the Birmingham metro areas down in the southern part. Also, Big Canoe Creek, it's about 245 square miles. It's almost a third of the size of the Locust Fork, and it's mainly in St. Clair County, and the larger cities are Asheville and Springville. So it actually drains into the Coosa, and there is a reservoir at the very end of it, Nilly Henry Lake. The importance of these rivers, there's several different things. Not only the biodiversity, so in this bottom left hand corner is a flattened musk turtle, and I'll get into that more on the next slide, but also the water quality. So these watersheds have several different municipalities within them that rely on the surface water for their drinking water supply. So it's important from a public supply standpoint to have good water quality here, which we know will also benefit the critters. And in the top two pictures, you see different types of recreation. So right here you have Martis Mill Falls. That's a really popular swimming hole in Locust Fork. That's just right outside of Blunsville. And in the right corner you have a picture of the Locust Fork Games that happen at Kings Bend, and that's actually in the Locust Fork area. So people love to go there and they love to recreate. They love to paddle, they love to fish, and they love to swim. Here's just a picture of some threatened and endangered species that are present in both of these watersheds. I have termed them charismatic critters. As you can see, some of them are a little more charismatic than others. Again, we have the flattened musk turtle, and it is actually in great peril. There's not many of them left. If you ever see one, it is a very rare sighting. They are one of Alabama's only endemic turtle species. That means that's the only place that they exist, and they only exist in the Black Warrior Water Basin. So in the Sipsey, the Mulberry, and the Locust Fork rivers. Also in the top right hand corner you see the Black Warrior Water Dog. This is a large salamander that has external gills. It looks kind of like a little water lion. Pretty neat. It is also endemic to the Black Warrior River, and it shares the same habitat as the flattened musk turtle. They are also in great peril, and they are very rare if you see one. In the top left hand corner we've got the tri-spot darter. It was thought to have been extirpated or extinct until 2008. Some folks that were out doing fish surveys actually found one in a stream that is a tributary to Big Canoe Creek. And since then, they have also found these in the Locust Fork watershed. So this little guy is in both of these watersheds. In the bottom right hand corner, there's the Canoe Creek club shell. It only exists in Big Canoe Creek watershed. And in this picture, this is a field visit to do a release with the Alabama Aquatic Biodiversity Center. They actually propagate these in the lab and re-release them into favorable environments where they think that they will do well. So this little guy was about to be reintroduced back into the creek. So just a part of my job and what I do, I work with landowners a lot, and I go on many field visits, and these are the types of things that we talk about. So a lot of times landowners are interested in putting their property in a conservation easement, or they wonder if there might be a chance for land acquisition through the Nature Conservancy. What we like to do is have a headwaters down approach. So anything that would be beneficial to the entire system is beneficial for us and our long-term goals. Also, we like to do stream bank stabilization or best management practices that reduce erosion. Both of these watersheds have a lot of agriculture in them, so we like to work with farmers a lot of times as well to do things on their property like livestock exclusion, off-channel waterers, and things like that to help reduce that erosion and improve water quality. Whenever we can, we want to plant those riparian buffers on the side of the water. A lot of times you get failing stream banks because there is a lack of trees, and those tree roots really help to hold that bank intact. They help to slow down and uptake surface water, and they also shade the creek for the critters that are living in there. So there's so many water quality benefits to having a good riparian corridor or trees around the creek. And lastly, anything that we can do to nurture that river culture, to help promote recreation or any kind of public access for paddlers or people who are wanting to fish. If people can get out and they can get in the creek and they can love it, then they want to help protect it and they want to help advocate for it. So as I mentioned before, there's a lot of different threats to both of these watersheds. They're very similar in terms of land use. Right here you see a map of the Locust Fork watershed, and this is a land use land cover map. And everything that you see in yellow is some type of agriculture, whether it be pasteurization, row crop, people that own cattle, or even chicken houses, things of that nature. So the upper third of this watershed is largely agriculturally influenced. Everything you see in green is forested. That's good. We like that. And everything that you see in red is development. So you can kind of see the Birmingham area down in the southern part of the watershed. So threats that accompany these different land uses, like I mentioned, you've got pasteurization, people with cattle or any sort of agricultural operation where they have to have fertilizer or keep animals. Mining, there's a lot of mining going on, especially in the lower parts of the watershed. Lack of riparian forest, and with all of these things comes sediment, nutrient, and pollutant loading that is harming that water quality. So different conservation strategies that we have to help combat these things. So what the Nature Conservancy does is for each of these priority rivers, we do a BHI data collection. BHI stands for Bank Erosion Hazard Index. So basically, we paddle down all of these main stem rivers, we assess their bank condition, and we look at the failing stream banks and where the top producing sediment sites are, because that's where we want to focus our conservation efforts and prioritize our funding so we can be successful when it comes to restoring these rivers. Landowner engagement is so important because most of this is privately owned. A lot of folks are farmers. We want to work with them to help do things to protect the river and even help them enhance their operation. So we do a lot of that through Farm Bill program implementation. So this would be through the Natural Resources Conservation Service or the local NRCS office. We work with them hand in hand as partners to help landowners be aware of the different cost share opportunities that are out there for these best management practices and different types of restoration. Other things that we would like to do would be help push for strategic irrigation. We want to help influence water policy. We want to study the in-stream flow and how much water is in the creeks to help critters. And stream bank restoration. That's one of the main things that we hope to do to protect these rivers. Here's just a slide that shows partner collaboration as well as field visits and landowner outreach. So the picture on the left is a day where I met with Todd Fobian with the Alabama Department of Conservation and Natural Resources and Lee Holt, which works for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Partners Program. And they were installing temperature loggers in the creek to study the effects of temperature on mussel distribution. So I already knew the landowner. I set up a field visit with them. She was more than willing to let them put a temperature logger in the creek and help them out with their studies to help the mussels. On the right side, so this is just a landowner field visit where I got in the boat with a fellow and we paddled down and assessed all of his bank conditions. And what's funny about this picture is a giant cottonmouth swam up to the boat right after I took this picture. So the after picture would look a lot different than the before picture, and you might have seen some panicked faces. Here's just an example of the failing stream banks that I keep mentioning. So the picture on the left, you can see the guy for scale, and he is a lot braver than I am. I didn't want to stand on the edge that close. But you can only imagine how many tons of sediment enter that creek each year. It's one of the #1 pollutants to these critters. It smothers their habitat. So all their spawning beds, their food, it covers everything. It's almost like us breathing in a lot of smog. So they have to filter that out through their gills, and it's just not good for anything. On the right, you have a picture of actual bank stabilization. This is the same stream bank. So this is a before and after picture. And this is an approach that is used by the NRCS office. What they like to use a lot of rock at the toe, and the Nature Conservancy just wrote a big grant in conjunction with NRCS to try to use some more natural materials such as toe wood. So if you get a lot of large woody debris in the water, that really helps out with the habitat for these creatures. We also like to see more of a riparian planting there. So I went back and visited this site recently, and there's a lot of river cane coming up, but anything that we can do to help that process along and get that riparian buffer started is a good thing. So here are some examples of some of these agricultural best management practices. Obviously, just trying to fence the cattle out of the water. In the bottom right hand picture, this is an example of us paddling down and doing our beehive, and there's cows in the creek just hanging out with us. So what we would like to do is get them out of the creek, get some exclusion fencing as you see in this top right hand corner, and in the bottom left hand corner just get them some alternative water. So we could put in a well for that producer, or we could come off a meter even and provide them an alternative means for the cow to get water and keep the creeks clean. Also, what you see around that trough is heavy use area. So that is some crushed rock that has been put there to help with hoof traffic, because if you get a lot of hoof traffic, then the soil really compacts and it increases surface runoff into the streams. That's another reason why rotational grazing is a good thing. So the more cross fencing you have, the better. So you can rotate your cattle from pasture to pasture, and the grass grows better, the soil is more permeated, and the water is able to infiltrate it as it should. You get less runoff into those creeks, and it's just a win-win situation for the farmer, for the animals, and all the critters in the creek. So here are some current restoration projects that we have. One is on the Calvert Prong, which is a tributary to the Locust Fork, and we recently secured funding through the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation Southeastern Aquatics Fund. And the survey has been completed. The design has been completed. It will be a natural channel design that includes large woody debris. Permits are in place. It's a relatively large restoration project at around 1,200 linear feet. I'll show a picture in just a moment. It's 2 different stretches of the creek. So construction will start this fall for that. On the right, we have the Regional Conservation Partnership Project grant that I mentioned earlier. That is in conjunction with the NRCS, or Natural Resources Conservation Service. We have asked for $1 million from them to put in stream bank restoration in each of our priority watersheds. So it is a 1-to-1 match for that. So we get $1 million from NRCS, but then we have to come up with $1 million in match. So we have our Alabama Rivers and Streams Network partners that are helping us with monitoring, and that will serve as in-kind match. So what we're going to do is have a pre-restoration monitoring, complete with water quality sampling, sediment quality sampling, fish, IBIs, mussels, macroinvertebrates, and pebble counts to determine how the channel changes over time. So we'll do that before the restoration even begins and after the restoration is finished as a way to gauge success. So that comes up with some of the match, but the rest of it, the Nature Conservancy is very dependent on our philanthropy team. So they advocate for the freshwater restorations that we do and reach out to individual donors to try to come up with the rest of that match. So these really important projects can happen, and they're expensive. So you have a lot of people coming to the table, a lot of leverage from different states, federal agencies, and nonprofits. So they're really a big deal, and it's really important. And I really want to applaud the philanthropy team for helping us out with that because it's so important. So this is just an example. This is an aerial photograph of the Calvert Pond project. As you can see in the left-hand corner, this tiny truck is for scale. So this is broken up into two stretches, about 600 feet on this side and 600 feet on the other bank. And what we plan to do is slope the bank back and put in a brush mattress and a combination of stone at the toe, come up and plant the rest of the floodplain in trees. So there will be a nice riparian buffer on this side, and then on the opposite bank this entire field will be planted in trees. So that's about everything that I have. I just want to say that this is a picture of my daughter, Lenny, and it's her first paddle on Big Canoe Creek. We got to go out last Sunday, and she had a really big time, and she got to enjoy seeing snapping turtles, or as she calls them, napping turtles. So enjoy those pictures, and thank you for your time.
Oh, Elena, thank you so much for this program. I think we all learned something here. I know I did. It's really great to have you as part of this Nature Calls. So Nature Calls will feature a new area of TNC Alabama conservation each week on Thursday at 3 p.m. Next week, Chuck Bird, land steward for TNC Alabama and our resident expert on rare plants, will take us on a tour of TNC Alabama nature preserves. Everyone on this Zoom today will receive an invitation to next week's program. Feel free to share the invitation by forwarding the email you receive, or just send us your friend's email address and we'll add them from here. As we see, conservation never stops. The work goes on even when the rest of us may be working from home during the pandemic and trying to stay safe. So we need your support now more than ever. You see on your screen an opportunity to make a donation online at support.nature.org/Alabama. And I'll just say one thing. The Daniel Foundation of Alabama has awarded TNC a $75,000 challenge grant. In order to get that $75,000, every dollar we raise will be matched with another dollar up to that $75,000. That effectively doubles your gift to TNC and helps us keep our conservationists out in the field and on the rivers. And we ask you to help us if you can. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.